The title of today's devotional is I Have a Splitting Headache. I remember the day as if it were yesterday. The woman called and asked to come and talk with me about a matter of great concern for her. I set up an appointment for her as soon as I could. When she appeared at the door of my study, she seemed quite upset and distraught. I invited her to come in. She hesitated and then hesitated again. I invited her to come in again. She entered the room with an explanation on her lips. "I don't know whether I should have come or not," she declared. "I have a splitting headache and probably should have stayed home." I invited her to sit down with the words, "Well, you're here, let's talk." She sat down and she stared at me. "I don't know where to begin," she said. "What are you feeling?" I asked. "I feel terrible," she replied. We talked for almost an hour as she shared feelings, thoughts, anger, stress, discomfort, frustration. At the conclusion of the hour, I spoke as straight as I knew how, looking intently in her eyes. "You know," and I said her name, "when you came in the door earlier, you said something very important to me. You said that you had a splitting headache. Do you recall?" "Yes," she said, "I do remember." I then told her my thought about our conversation. "You have been describing for me quite a dilemma in your life. You're trying to decide between two ways you might go with your life. You're split in your mind and your heart and your spirit about this matter. So far, you have refused to make a choice, and you continue to refuse to make a choice. No wonder you have a splitting headache." She stared at me with a perplexed and disbelieving look. Then, after a moment, she said, "You know, you're right. I do have to decide. I don't want to, but I have to. I believe I must. I lay awake at night thinking about it. I sit in my recliner and think about it, but I can't make up my mind about it." "Well," I replied, "may I suggest you change your words a little? You say you can't make up your mind. What if you say, 'I won't make up my mind'? You really can. You have the power to decide, to choose, to resolve this question, and only you can do it." She thanked me for my time and help, and she left to hopefully use her power to decide. I relate this encounter to you for two strong reasons. The first, because of the apparent and correct description of the person's problems. She said, right on target, "I have a splitting headache." Sometimes our bodies tell us what we're doing wrong. That's causing us pain and stress. We may not be aware. We may choose not to be aware. But our body is often sending us messages. If there is a pain, what is my body saying to me? What is my body telling me? I have to mention a recent book by Dr. Bessel van der Kolk entitled "The Body Keeps the Score," which explores the whole matter of brain, mind, and body in the healing of trauma. The second reason I tell you this encounter is to invite you to listen to the advice of Jesus. In the teachings of Jesus, his sermons, his parables, his words, there is an invitation to each of us to live a unified life, a life of integrity and completeness, and consequently, a whole life, WHOLE. When the scribes asked Jesus, "Which commandment is the first of all?" Jesus replied with this statement that points us toward a unified life, a life with integrity and wholeness. He said, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind, and with all your strength." So Mark records in chapter 12, verse 30. Jesus describes what can happen to divide us even in our acts of worship, and he warns us against a divided life. In Matthew 6:1 and following, Jesus admonishes us not to do any of our acts of worship to try to please both God and man. Beware, Jesus says, of practicing your religion before others in order to be seen by him. Why? Because of trying to live a divided life, a split life, if you will. Many, perhaps most, of Jesus' acts of healing can be viewed from the perspective of bringing wholeness to persons. The question for each of us is to examine our lives, our choices, our decisions from the standpoint of living a whole, W-H-O-L-E, life. Is there any area of your life in which you are attempting to live a split life? Are you torn between two values, two loves, two ways, and you have yet to make a definite choice? Jesus is in the business of helping each of us to decide and to choose. Through prayer, meditation, study, especially of Jesus' teachings and life, and with the help of Christ's Spirit, we have the power to choose to live a life of unity in God. May God bless you in your own search for wholeness within God's love. Amen.